where he says, the only thing that I seek from the Lord is for me to gaze on the beauty of him and seek him in his temple. That he recognizes that there's war, there are battles being fought. When the times do get shaky, he still stands on solid ground, that he's able to worship at any time. And the only thing that he seeks from God is to be able to seek him, is him. That's it. It's just to be with him, to see his beauty. And that is something to get us excited, that we can be like that we have a God who is worthy of worship, that we get to stand on his solid foundation and stand on his love, that we are loved by him. And so when we sing Firm Foundation and Promises, that's the truth that we get to sing about. Join us in worship this morning. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand, when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. Why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense, so I won't be going under. Not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Gate wind blew, my house was built on. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it. Sing it out, church. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause I'm standing strong on you.
won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll
remain steadfast. Let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Is your faithfulness to me? Great is your faithfulness to me. The rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness
Father, we just want to thank you for gathering us this morning. God, we want to invite you into this time. We just pray that your Spirit fills this room while Matt is speaking. And God, we just pray that you use him as the vessel to just preach your word, preach the truth. And let us take something home to learn about you, learn about your character. When we learn about your character, God, we want that to impact our own character, how we live our lives. Let me pray. Amen.
You may have a seat.
All right, thank you, Ben. Good morning, everybody. If you don't know me, I am Ben, and I have a ton of announcements this morning. So we're going to look forward through like the rest of the semester for all the announcements. They should be maybe on the screen behind me, but if not, or also I would maybe recommend you pull out your phones and take some notes. Good morning. All right. All right, this Tuesday is our Asking for a Friend panel. So over the last few weeks, we've done our Sunday service has been our Asking for a Friend series. And this Tuesday we'll be doing a panel, having a bunch of special guests there that we're asking questions to. They'll be answering some questions about friendship. Should be a great time. It will be in here at 6 p.m. And we're gonna have dinner afterwards, so bring a friend, and we'll hope to see you there. Free tacos. Yep, doing tacos. Next Sunday, we will not have our normal service because we will be in Hocking Hills for spring break. Today is the last day that you can sign up for that spring break trip. So if you want to go and haven't signed up yet, talk to Ian or Matt in the back after service, and they will get you the information that you need. The following Sunday then, March 12th, will be the day before classes start again after spring break. But we're not going to have our normal Sunday service. We will instead have an evening service in here at 6. It's going to be a simple Sunday. It's a time to worship, reflect, just spend some time together. Should be a great time. All right, now into April. April 9th is Easter. Yeah, love Easter. And a lot of you are probably going home, but if you're not going home, we're going to have our first ever H2O Easter service on that Sunday. It should be great. That will be at 11:30, normal time, normal place, and then we're gonna have a big old lunch afterwards. So come to that if you're here. Then the following Sunday, April 16th, we're gonna have our baptism service. Same time, same place. It'll be same time. I don't know if it'll be, but baptism is an outward expression of an inward change that Jesus has made in our hearts. And I know that a lot of you guys probably have different interpretations of what baptism is, or maybe you have no idea what baptism is, depending on your background. So if you have questions about baptism, or if you're interested in getting baptized, talk to a staff member. They can help you with that. All right, now we're going to the very end of April. Friday, April 28th, we're going to be having a celebration worship night with some of the other Christian organizations on campus. That will be at 7 in this room. Should be a great time just to hang out with other people from other organizations and spend some time with Jesus before finals week, which is the next week. And then the summer. LT is a great experience. If you don't know what you're doing this summer, if you have a free summer, if you're like, I'm lost, you should go to LT. It is great. Spend a summer in the mountains with Jesus, with people from other H2Os, other college churches across the U.S. I went last summer. It was amazing. Spent a ton of time outside in the mountains. Made a ton of new friends. I would highly encourage you to go if you're interested. And applications are available, and they are due in April. I turned mine in on the very last day that I could last year. Don't do that. Do it before that. But if you're interested in learning more about that, there's info on our website, which is h2toledo.org, or you can talk to a staff member or me. I can give you information about that. And I think my very last announcement is that if you're still going to be in Toledo this summer, we're still going to be here. We're still going to have our life groups, which will be on Sundays, I believe, and we'll have more details for that later. all the announcements I have, which is a lot. Thanks, Sarah. Again, info for all those are, well, in your bulletin too, but it's also on our website, which again is h2fluto.org. If you have questions about anything, they're there, or you can talk to staff over there. All right. Now, you can stand up and say hi to people around you if you would like to.
Jesus, your presence is life. In truth, the direction is alive. A moment with you makes me fly. When you speak, dreams and reality collide.
All right, good morning, everybody. You guys can go ahead and find your seats. I love how hyped everybody gets for announcements. It's like the most excited everybody gets during the whole service is during announcements. My name is Matt Olszewski. I'm one of the pastors here at H2O. I'm excited that you guys are here. We are finishing up our series called Asking for a Friend. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but there are certain questions in life that are just really hard to answer. They're not questions of intellect. They're not questions that are necessarily that have a right or wrong answer, but they're just questions that it seems like it's hard to give an answer that we feel is adequate, because we feel like the question that someone is asking us, there seems to be an obvious answer that they want us to say, but we're still not exactly sure how to answer the question. So a couple of those questions are, and these questions are asked by well-intended people. I have asked these questions, and I can get the sense when I ask them that people are like, I know the answer you want, so I'm just going to give you the answer you want. So some of you, right before you came to college, there were many well-intentioned people that said, are you ready for college? Are you ready for college? And then for some of you, you're about ready to graduate, and I've probably asked this question to some of you. Are you excited to graduate and start your first job? Right? These questions, they seem like they have an obvious answer, but they're hard to answer because they're based on what we do not know yet, right? So like if someone asked you before you came to college, are you excited for college? I think the obvious answer is yes, I'm excited for college. But there are so many unknowns that you just didn't know exactly what to expect. There are certain variables that you were excited about, like, okay, I'm going to go to classes. I can expect that. I'm going to live in a dorm. That is exciting. But some of the variables that you did not know are, what is my roommate going to be like? Am I going to get lost going to class? Am I going to be able to make friends? Like, it's just a hard question to answer because you don't know exactly what to expect. Same with when you're graduating and getting your first job. Of course, you're getting excited to work your first job after graduation because someone is going to pay you money. You no longer have to live the life where you are doing lots of work where you get zero money. right? Do you feel that right now? You're doing lots of studying, lots of work, and the only return you get is like a letter right back. And you're like, okay, that's satisfying for, I think, a semester. Then I have to do it all over again, right? But when you graduate, you're going to get paid. But the unknowns are, what's the office environment like? Am I going to like the people that I work with? Is this job actually going to end up being satisfying when I enter into the workforce? Like, there's just variables that you don't know what to expect. And I think the same can be said about our friendships, right? So we've been going through this series asking for a friend, and we've discovered throughout this series that there's a lot of vital things that we can do to bring health to our friendships. Because God designed us to be relational. God designed us so that we would know one another, that we would be together. It's one of the most important aspects of our lives. And we've had this memory verse that we've been going over all of February. And we've been trying to get everybody in H2O to memorize this one verse because it goes along with the theme of this series. And it's Proverbs 18:24, and you know that we have been saying it all together every week on Sundays, just so you're used to hearing it, used to seeing it, used to knowing it. And so we're going to do it one last time, because next week is February or March. Next week is March, and we are going to have a new memory verse. So the memory verse is going to come up behind me. I should have taken some words out just to make it a little bit more difficult. But we're going to do Proverbs 18:24. We're going to say it all together. So here we go. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. An amazing verse to memorize, to know, a truth that can be with us forever. The value of friendship. And so throughout this series, we've been looking through all these different things. We looked at the foundation of friendship, and I talked about these different things that I called shared experiences. And the foundation of every friendship has to have the shared experiences of fun, of fear, doing things that scare you. You need to have the shared experiences of failure. Life is not all about success. We all fail at things, and we need to share in our failures together. And then I talked about sharing our faith, pushing each other towards Jesus. And then the next week, I expanded the conversation about what it looks like to share our failures together, to be authentic, to have some vulnerability. The things that we feel shame about, the things that we want to keep hidden in the dark, we actually need to bring out in the light because we understand the forgiveness of Jesus and we need to live in that truth. And then last week, Tom talked about one of the most crucial aspects of friendship is that when we have conflict, when our friends hurt us, when we do things to hurt our friends, when things that make us angry, how do we actually keep the friendship alive and going without just throwing it away and tossing it away because we've been hurt so bad? How do we actually bring the friendship back together? In all of these weeks, we're leading up to this week, the last week, which gets us back to the answer or the questions that I think are difficult to answer. And this one is about friendship. So here's the question. What would you be willing to do to help one of your friends? What would you be willing to do to help one of your friends? Or what would you be willing to sacrifice for one of your friends? Right? The simple answer that I think all of us would give, and the most obvious answer, we would all say, I would do anything for my friends. And I think that is an answer, and I think it's an honest answer, but I think it's a huge hypothetical question that, again, if we don't know all the variables, we don't know exactly what we'd be willing to do for our friends. We don't know what things are going to come at us in life. We don't know what things are going to come at our friends' lives where we say, I'm willing to step into that. That seems really messy. That seems really inconvenient. Yeah, I'm willing to help my friends with that. So it's hard to answer a question like that because we don't have all the details. And I think this really summarizes the story that we're going to read this morning in the Bible. And so let me set this up for you a little bit before we actually read a portion of the story. So we have Jesus, and he's in this town called Capernaum, okay? I'm kind of experimenting here. I have a map. Yeah, okay? I don't know if this is helpful. I think sometimes when I read the Bible, I get lost because I don't know, like, how do I visualize what is happening here, right? Okay, so if you can see Capernaum, it's that red dot. It's around the Sea of Galilee, okay? So Capernaum is right on the water. It's a town that Jesus visited often. And Jesus was in this town of Capernaum, and he was healing all sorts of people, okay? And word had gotten out that he was healing lots of people. And so people kept coming to this house that Jesus was hanging out at. I mean, just lines and lines of people that needed physical healing. And Jesus sat there all day, one by one, healing person after person. And when the night ended and everybody that wanted a healing got one, the lines of people and the crowd went away. And Jesus got a little bit of sleep, and then he woke up early in the morning to pray. And he got by himself. He left the house, he got away, and he went to pray, and his disciples were looking for him, his friends, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "I was praying, but now we're going to go to another town. Let's go." And so they leave Capernaum, they leave that area, and they start traveling around to the other cities around Capernaum. But a few days later, they actually return to Capernaum. And once again, the word spreads really quickly that Jesus is back, right? After doing all these healings and doing all these miracles, it makes sense that everybody would be excited that he is back in town, right? They are pumped. And so huge crowds, again, came to Jesus. But this time, he wasn't healing. It's almost as if like there wasn't any more people to heal. Like he had healed everybody. So instead, he was just talking. And people were listening. And they were listening to every word that came out of Jesus' mouth. He was telling everyone God's plan. People were just mesmerized. So the building that he was in, it was packed full. There were people coming out the doorway, and people were just lining themselves around the building just so they could hear the words of Jesus. Like it was shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow. Well, then comes along 4 men, and they're carrying this paralyzed man on a mat or like a stretcher. Now remember, Jesus was here just like a few days ago, and he had healed all sorts of people from their sickness, from their physical problems. But for some reason, this guy could not make it there. Maybe he wasn't from Capernaum. Maybe he had gotten there just too late, and Jesus had left. And so for some reason, this guy was not healed. He couldn't walk. But again, word got out that Jesus was back in town. So this guy was carried by 4 of his friends. There's 2 problems we have here, though. Jesus isn't healing today. That's not what he's doing. So it seems like we're kind of late to the game. Second, there's this huge crowd that I just told you about. And if you guys have ever been in a big crowd where something exciting is happening, if maybe for some of you, if you've been to a concert where you're in like the standing room only seats near the stage, if you're hanging out before the concert, you know that like people, they're getting their legs wide, they're getting their shoulders out, like they're making sure that their space is secure, right? So these 4 friends are carrying their paralyzed friend, and I guarantee people are not giving up their space. They are not going to move aside for this guy to get through. So here's what happens. Here's what happens in Mark chapter 2. It says, since they could not get to him could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus by digging through it and then lowered the mat the man was lying on. Okay, let's just talk about how crazy this is here for a second, okay? 4 guys can't get their friend to Jesus, and they need to come up with a plan. And their plan was, I think we can dig through the roof. I think it's possible. Let's get our friend up on the roof, right? I don't mean to be stereotypical, but this is like totally a dude plan, right? Like 4 guys just like, all right, let's do the craziest, maybe dumbest thing we can think of, and let's get this guy in front of Jesus. Okay? This would have been incredibly hard to do. Right? The story just reads, they got up on the roof, they dug through it so they get in front of Jesus. But let's just think about how difficult this would have been. Okay? First of all, they had to lift their friend on a stretcher-like thing that probably did not have straps to hold him in. So you have probably 2 friends on the roof grabbing the top of the mat and 2 friends at the bottom holding the mat and pushing him up. So their friend is like at like this angle. It's hard to get somebody up onto a structure when someone is laying at this angle. And they didn't drop him, right? So that is difficult. Second thing is that when they got up there, they made some sort of like visual estimation of where Jesus was in this building while they were up on the roof, right? It took someone to say like, okay, according to like my calculations, I think Jesus is here. And that's where they started digging. They started digging through a roof that wasn't theirs. In fact, they probably had no idea who this roof belonged to. They just started grabbing mud and sticks and all the non-permanent materials that they used to make roofs with. They just started grabbing stuff and making a hole. Not just a small hole, a hole big enough for a grown man to be lowered through. It could have been like a pot-sized hole, where then they just lowered the man like straight down. But it says they lowered him in the mat, so it makes me believe that they made a hole big enough to like lower him down straight on the mat. This would have been incredibly difficult to do. And I'm sure there was a huge commotion, right? As a hole is being dug through a roof, I'm sure people on the inside are like, what is happening? There was probably a lot of sound, a lot of questions, a lot of commotion. But then I think it probably went dead silent when this man comes right before Jesus and Jesus starts speaking. And this is what he says. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now, some teachers of the law were sitting there thinking to themselves, why does this fellow talk like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? Immediately, Jesus knew in his spirit that this was what they were thinking in their hearts, and he said to them, why are you thinking these things? Which is easier, to say this paralyzed man, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up, take your mat, and walk? But I want you to know that the Son of Man, that's him, that's Jesus, has authority on earth to forgive sins. So he said to the man, I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home. He got up, took his mat, and walked out in full view of them all. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, we have never seen anything like this. We have never seen anything like this. Now, there's something very important to this story that I want to get to, but we're going to have to come back to it much later. I just want to keep the focus on how crazy it was for these 4 guys, these 4 friends, and what they did to get their paralyzed friend in front of Jesus. Because, let's be honest, they had to give up their time to do this. We all have lives. We all have things that we want to do. These friends had to give up time. They had to give up their strength to do this. We talked about how this would not have been easy to get him up on the roof. they had to give up their pride to do this. It was probably embarrassing to cause such a scene as they did in front of people that they may have not known, to a person's house that they did not know. This would have been embarrassing. Also, they could have been thinking, it's not worth it. The crowd's too big, we can't get to Jesus. Let's just go home. We can't get our friend in front of Jesus. It's gonna be too much effort. And then they had to be on top of the roof, staring down this hole, watching Jesus heal their friend, and they didn't even get a front row seat. They were still up on the roof, just, what's happening? What's going on? Is he healed? So they had to have a ceiling seat to this whole thing. This was a lot of sacrifice on their part. Right? This was a lot of sacrifice. But this right here is friendship. This is the epitome of what we want in our friends. We want friends that will do all these things in order to get us in front of Jesus. They would do anything. They didn't wake up one day thinking, I would do anything for my friend. They woke up that morning saying, Jesus is here. I guess we got to do what we got to do to get him in front of Jesus. And that's why one of our main goals as a church over the next year, we laid this out at the beginning of the semester on our Vision Sunday. We said we want to see 80% of our church would say they have at least one roof digging friend. And up to this point, you guys, if you hadn't read this story before, you were kind of like, what the heck is a roof digging friend? Now you know. We want 80% of our church to say that they have at least one roof digging friend. A friend that would go beyond all things. And here's why this is so important to us as a church, because roof digging friends don't happen overnight. Roof digging friends, you can't have them delivered to you by Amazon. It's not that easy. It takes years of constant relationship. It takes years of shared experiences. It takes years of a ton of authenticity and vulnerability with someone. It takes years of having conflict and working through it. That's when you know that you've reached this moment of where you have friends that will be willing to dig your roof, to see you benefit, to see you succeed, to see you get healed. These are the things that lead to friends that you want, that are reliable, and you stick closer than a brother. So this is a friendship that is covered with sacrifice, and we may not need a healing like this guy, but we all need the dedication of friends like this. And so throughout this series, we've shared a lot of personal stories, because stories are about real life, and friendship is very personal, and stories are real, right? I don't want to get up in front of you and talk about friendship and just share, like, here's some steps you can take, and then you'll have good friends. I want to share experiences, real life things that I've gone through, and how I've had rich friendships. And so in my life since following Jesus, I've had so many roof digging friends that have stepped in for me and dug through those roofs. And many of those people are in this room this morning. But I want to share with you a roof digging experience I had recently with some friends of mine. An experience where you are faced with the question, what would you be willing to do for a friend? And you just don't know until it happens. So I want to share a picture of you of the Pardee family, Matt and Mary Lynn Pardee and their kids. So my wife Gretchen and I, we've known the Pardees for 20 years now. Matt was my first boss when I went on staff with H2O, and over the years, he's become more than just a boss. He has become just an incredible friend. Same with Gretchen and her friendship with Mary Lynn. Our lives became intertwined through the work that we did with H2O, some of the shared experiences that we've had in helping lead a college church, And we've come together as families. A lot of our kids, or some of our kids are the same age as mine. And so we've had all these shared experiences over the years, celebrations, heartache, doing things together that we were scared to do, things that were challenging, putting each other in front of Jesus and trusting him. And so, in fact, Matt, if you don't know this, he was responsible for the vision of creating the H2O network. He had a goal of, I think we should have an H2O church on every major college campus in Ohio. That's a vision that he came to our staff meeting with when I was back at H2O Bowling Green. He said, this is what we're going to give the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years to. We're going to start college churches on college campuses. And he was so dedicated to that vision that he decided that he was going to come to Toledo with me to help me start H2O Toledo. And even though he's 10 years older than me, he's much more wise, he has much more ministry experience. He said, you're in charge, and I'm just here to help you. And I don't think I understood at the time, and I hope you guys understand this. You know how difficult that is for a grown man who is much better at his job than a younger person to say, I think you can do this, you're in charge. That is, you don't see that very often. You're going to see that when you get into the real world at your jobs. No one's willing to just say, why don't you take my management position? No one's going to do that. Matt Hardy said, you're in charge, let's do this together, but I want to see you lead. So we have a ton of history together as a family. Well, in early November 2021, both Matt and Mary Lynn, they got COVID, okay? Mary Lynn bounces back pretty quickly, but Matt kept getting worse. And he ended up being hospitalized on November 16th, and then he was put on a ventilator 6 days later. Sorry, I think I cried every single message I give you. That's why friendship is so important, guys. So if you remember this period of time during COVID, it feels like COVID had like different stages, right? During this period of time, if you went on a ventilator, that was the death sentence. It was like, you are going to die. And Matt went on a ventilator, and this is when the forensic parties started digging the root to get Matt in front of Jesus. Because this ended up being a 3-month fight for his life. There was a lot of help from many, many families. But about 3 or 4 of us, families took on the day-to-day to help kind of Mary Lynn and her kids through this. We started digging in practical ways, like taking care of, hey, let's have the kids, we'll take them for the day, we'll have them spend the night, just so they can get their mind off of what's happening with their dad. We started cleaning their house, because Mary Lynn was at the hospital from as soon as she woke up till they kicked her out. So there wasn't much cleaning going on at the house. We'd buy groceries and stock their fridge. We'd organize their bills and all the cards that were coming in. I mean, there were just piles of envelopes in their house. So there were just practical ways we just started digging. But more importantly, we started digging spiritually. So the day that he went on the ventilator, a large group gathered outside the hospital to pray, since none of us could go inside. When he went on the ventilator, he was in a coma for almost a whole month, like knowing nothing. He had no idea what was happening. And so Mary Lynn asked for 24 hours of prayer. She just called out to people and said, I need people praying every single hour of the day, every single day. And so there were most nights where Gretchen and I would wake up at 3 in the morning, and I would pray for 4, and then Gretchen would get up at 4, and she would pray for 5. There were people praying for him over and over again. And then on December 4th, after being on the ventilator for about 2 weeks, which is when they typically take you off the ventilator, and this also happened to be the party's wedding anniversary, Mary Lynn was told that Matt was not going to make it. And she should sign a do not resuscitate paper because things got bad over the weekend. They said his heart was failing. His heart was not going to make it through. So So again, this was a Saturday. We headed back near the hospital and we prayed. And we just prayed and prayed and prayed. Just begged God. And the next morning, we gathered here in this room for church. And before church, if you're not here, we go to that corner and we pray. Pray for the service, pray for all of you, pray that God would speak to us. And so I had asked whoever was leading that morning, hey, can we pray for Matt? And at this point in our church, none of our students really knew Matt. He helped start the church, and then he went back to H2O Bowling Green to help serve there. And so this was at a point in our church where not many people knew Matt. And so we're gathered and we're praying, and I knew that I was going to have to pray at the end to close. And as people were praying, I could tell that there was just so many feelings and emotions that were like rushing through me. And so when I started praying, I just lost it. And I started begging God. I don't think I've ever prayed a more desperate prayer in my entire life. I was sobbing. And honestly, I was embarrassed. Because again, people in this room didn't know Matt. They didn't know like the context. And all of a sudden, there's all these people crying and begging for a man's life that they don't know at all. So I was a little embarrassed, not for crying. I was embarrassed that we just kind of like put our students in this position where like, what's happening right now? This is weird. They had no context for what Matt meant to me and so many people in this room. So that morning was powerful, but it was strange. But I can't tell you how amazing where Matt's journey went from there. As hundreds of people were praying for him, we were literally like spiritually lowering him through the roof to get him to Jesus. So there were ups and downs of his condition, but from early to December to late December, his heart got strong. He came out of his coma. He got out of the hospital. He went to a rehab center where he was trying to get his voice back. He was trying to get strength just to walk again. And on February 4th, the day that Matt and Marilyn started dating, Matt finally went home to meet this meeting. It was a miracle. Doctors said, we can't explain what just happened. We have no idea. The percentages of what Matt went through are so low. There's not many people like him that have survived this. And so this past February was a year since he went home. He's run a 5K since then. He played in a tennis tournament. He's the Matt that we've always known. But I want you to hear from Mary Lynn, Matt's wife, about all of this. She wrote a letter to kind of summarize her experience as a family, and this is how she ended the letter. And right, you end letters with like the most important thing that you want people to know. It's like your final statement, and this is how she puts it. She says, after COVID and all the difficulties we have faced the past 3 years, I pray and plead with you to be sure you are pursuing friendship and deep relationships with other followers of Jesus. We really need each other. As I sit here and conclude this letter almost exactly a year later, I am extremely grateful. I'm filled with gratitude that the end of the story has Matt and I sitting at the table with our kids together, and I'm grateful to have been reminded that our hope is not, and it cannot be, in life on this earth. The end of the story could have been different, and God still loves me, but we are not home. He is our home. And I want to just say, Mary Lynn makes such a good point. The result of Matt surviving is a blessing that I thank God for almost daily. But it is not the point. There are people in Matt's same situation that did not make it. And so the point that he made it through and that he survived is not like the end all to this story. That's not the point of this story, is that even though with that result, the truth still remains that we need roof-digging friends throughout our life. Even if he would have died, the blessing would have been that people surrounded Mary Lynn and her kids, and that God's love never changed throughout that whole time. And we don't have to doubt it. Because this is how God designed us to be in relationship with one another. This is how friendship works. And Jesus said it like this. He said, "This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends." There is no greater love. Okay? There is no greater love. Listen, we're all looking for love. We all need love. It's one of the biggest needs we have in our life is love. But sometimes I think we get tricked and fooled into believing that romantic love is the greatest love that we can experience. Jesus right here says, there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. The friendships that you have, the love that you get from your friends, there is no greater love that we can experience here on earth. It's not romantic love. It's not relationship love. That's great, and it's different, but there is no greater love than one that lays down his life for his friends. So this is where I want to finish up, by jumping back to how Jesus responded when the paralyzed man was lowered in front of him. It says this, "When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, 'Son, your sins are forgiven.'" And if you remember, there were some people in that room that got really mad at Jesus for saying that. They were like, only God can forgive sin. Only God can do that. But Jesus himself was God. And he had the authority to heal people, not only physically, but to heal people from the sin that they experience. And that's all of us. So plenty of people at this point had seen physical healings. Other people other than Jesus had healed people physically. That was nothing new for this time. But Jesus was making a statement. He's saying, I'm God, and I'm here, and I can forgive sin. Because there's a much bigger problem than the physical sickness we experience. There's a sickness that we experience in our hearts. There's a sickness that we experience in our hearts. So just like this physical man, this paralyzed man was lowered through a roof to get this healing, Jesus lowered himself through earth's ceiling to bring forgiveness of sin, to bring healing to our hearts. He laid down his own life on a cross, died a death, and took a punishment we deserve because his friends, you and I, his friends, us, were in trouble. And he said, there is no greater love than one who lays down his life for his friends. And he said, my friends are in trouble. I got to lay my life down. Because of our sin, we experience death. But Jesus said, I want to bring them life. And so I have to do something. He was the original roof-digging friend, but he was doing the digging and the healing. He was the friends and the healer because of his love for us. These are the types of friendships that we need. And we can only experience friendship like this if we understand the depth of love that God has for us. That while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Because we are friends. He wants to lay his life down for us. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. I want to just pray for you guys' friendships, that after this series, you would see some sort of spark going forward. Some sort of spark where you understand the love that God has for you, the friendship that you can have with God, that it would seep into your friendships. That you would experience the shared experiences with your friends, that you would experience working through conflict, that you would experience being vulnerable with your friends, And that then you would look at the people that surround you and you would say, these are the people that would get healed here. These are the people that would lay everything down just so they could see you live, survive, grow. That's what I'm going to pray for you guys this Thursday. God, thank you. And the way that you've created friendship is, it's a mystery to me because it's so good. It's so good. I want the people in this room to have friendships that bring life to them. I want people to have friendships in this room where they know that they can count on the people around them. I want them to take to heart the words of Proverbs 18:24, that when they look at the people around them, that they say, these are reliable friends. These are friends that I can count on. These are friends that I know that even when I'm away from my family, it seems like they stick closer to me than a brother, even a sister. Most of all, God, I pray that everybody in this room understands the love that you have for them. That's where friendship starts. And we see how you sacrificed for your friends, and you sacrificed for our brokenness, and you took care of the conflict we had with you because we didn't want to listen to you and we wanted to do things our way. You restored our relationship. Pray that we would know you, understand that truth, and we would live in that truth, and it brings us freedom, and it brings the Lord to us. That we love you. Pray in Jesus.
The altar's where you lead us. Take me there, take me there. What you need is just an offering. It's right here, my life is here, and I'll be a living sacrifice for you. The refiner. I wanna be consumed. I wanna be tried by you. Take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life.
If your glory wants to come here, let it fall. We want it all. Your fire is consuming. Fill this place, set it ablaze, and I'll be a living sacrifice for you. The fire, the refiner. I wanna be consumed. I wanna be tried by fire. You're refined. You take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. I wanna be tried by fire. Lord, refined. You take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life.
My hands, provide my heart. I wanna burn for you, be for you. sacrifice. I wanna burn here. Leave
Clean my hands, purify my heart. I wanna burn for you, only for you. Take my life as a sacrifice. I wanna burn for you, only for you. Clean my hands, purify my heart. I wanna burn for you, only for you. Take my life as a sacrifice. I wanna burn for you, only for you. I wanna be consumed.
You're a fire,
The refiner.
I wanna be
consumed.
I wanna be tried by fire.
Glorified. Take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. I wanna be tried by fire. Glorified. You take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. Hold me now in the hands that created the heavens. Find me now where the grace runs as deep as your scar. Pulled me from the clay, set me on a rock. Call me by your name.
Father, we just want to thank you for this service. Thank you for friendship. Thank you for the examples of friendship that we see in your word. God, we just pray that we can live out this truth, that we can that we can do what it takes to put our friends in front of Jesus. And pray that stays on our mind this week, that it stirs us, that it convicts us when we fail to do so. We pray.
Final announcements. One is if you are just deciding to go on spring break, like right now, we'd love to hear about that, okay? So maybe talk to Ian, he's back at the soundboard, let him know that you want to go, and it's your final chance. Second, we're going to be here on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. for our panel, so if you have questions, we'd love to answer those. And then finally, in your handout this morning, you received this. This is just kind of our last way for you guys to put together the whole series that we've just gone through. I think it's really good for us to write things down because it helps us kind of process. So we'd love for you guys to take this with you and just answer these questions as you go throughout your weeks. All right, thanks. Have a great Sunday.